Hello, everyone, and welcome to Engineering the Paranormal. I'm Rob Walzak, your host, and today, for the first time, I'm going to have a guest. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the project that I've been working on and try to get some input from you folks. It is Project Eris, and it's coming along. The website's being built. Hello, Danny. And what I'm asking for you all to do, and I'm going to copy this link, if you could go and fill out this form, it's a field report form. If you make up the data, that's perfectly fine. Just say in there somewhere that it's made up data. Because I need to work on my generative AI model that I'm working with to generate the standardized field reports. So if you could, please go to that link. It's a Google Doc and just fill it out and I'll get that and that will go into Project Eris to help with the generative AI. Now on to my guest. So today we're going to dive deep into the cutting edge of the world of paranormal research and experimentation with a guest who is truly shaping the future of the field. Austin Maynard is a trailblazer in the paranormal community. He founded Underground Paranormal Network. That is a collective that unites 5 historic locations in Ohio. He is an equipment developer, ghost box builder, and innovative researcher. And all that is to push the boundaries of what's possible in the paranormal field. Since 2017, Austin has been dedicated to experimenting with instrumental transcommunication, or ITC, exploring new paths, communication through custom-built experimental audio and video devices. His work extends beyond experimentation. Austin is the paranormal tech manager for the hit series Deathwalker with Nick Groff, where he designs and oversees the groundbreaking equipment and experiments used on the show. He's also a partner to J.W. Prather at IDC Devices and IDC Institute, collaborating on building revolutionary tools and advancing the hyperrealm and WorldGate experiments. Whether he's coordinating tours at historic locations or innovating new communication devices or pushing the limits of our understanding, Austin is constantly redefining what it means to explore the unknown. It's an honor to have him here today to share his insights and experience. And Austin, welcome to the show. How'd you like my intro, huh?
Man, was long. I was like, do I deserve all this?
I worked on that.
Well, thank you, man. I'm honored to be. You what did you say? That was the first guest?
My first guest. That's right. Yes,
Dude,
sir.
I'm honored, man. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, I'll get you a little gold sticker you can put on your forehead.
Dude, I should. I'll hang it up right behind me. Right underneath, right here.
It's really more important than that YouTube gold record thing they give you for 1 million, subscribers. So.
It's pretty cool. Apparently, I haven't seen anybody get that yet. At least not anybody I know.
Well, there can only be one, right? Outlander.
Right.
There can only be one. Hello, Courtney. Hello, Sandra, Danny, Mark. Thanks for tuning in. So you heard me mention the Project Eris, and we were talking about that a little bit before the show. So just to refresh everyone's memory, the goal of that is to try to bring the community together.
Lost you.
Did you lose me? You're frozen on my screen, but I can hear you. Oh, you're moving again. Am I still lost?
Oh, shoot. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I like lost you like for a minute there. I wasn't even sure. I heard you say that you mentioned Project Eris at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was the last thing I heard.
Yeah. And now I've lost my train of thought. Yeah. Project Eris. The goal is to bring the community together we want to, the first phase is to generate field reports. Okay, so investigators will get a call from a homeowner or whoever that they're having some paranormal activity. They'll go in and do some research, and they'll fill out this field report. They'll upload the field report to Project Eris, where generative AI will take that field report and write a standardized field report and post that to the website for people to come and read. On the back end, I'm also collecting data so that we can start doing research, right? You know, what we hear all these different theories or beliefs from people that the moon has something to do with it, the stars have something to do with it, right? But we don't really know because we've never collected the data. This is a chance where when you fill out that field report, you can collect the data and we can start looking at that stuff.
Oh yeah, and I love it. And like I said to you before the show too, I think it's a brilliant idea. I really, you know, because you were mentioning the way that MUFON does handles their organization and the coordination that they have, and just the level of just the level of what is it? The level of data collection, organization, and coordination that they have. I mean, it really is impressive.
Yeah.
And we really should have one of these programs for the paranormal. And I think that nobody's really kind of taken the initiative to set up really set up a base for that, or a platform necessarily for that. And I love the idea I love that you're taking this step when nobody else has. And I mean, it's great. And I hope that people jump on board with this because, it's small at first. It always starts out as a small idea, but if as long as like the coordination is there and people can see that it actually is a legitimate effort to really collect data and amass data from the paranormal field as a collective, which really we have not done. Like, this is something that has been seriously lacking in the field, but it's kind of a standard practice, especially like even in the scientific community. Like, that is a standard. Like, there is a mass collection of data for like amongst astronomers that like they post all their data, they put it out there, and that's how others can have a starting point if they want to base research off of that finding, right? And so this is an amazing start. I think credits to you, man. This is great.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I don't want it to be just me either, right? So I did put a post out there for Ghost Gear that if you want to be involved, to reach out to me at my email, and I'll throw that up here real quick. Where is it? There it be. Send me an email if you want to be involved. I can always use the help. This is going to be a 501c3, so basically a nonprofit. So I don't plan on making any money off this, although I am spending money on it. The website is very expensive, but I've got that going. And hopefully this will be able to take care of itself in perpetuity. Yeah. And, I want to grow it. Like we talked about, I want to be able to go from field reports to white papers, and white papers to training, and basically, in a way, follow what MUFON has done, but for ghost hunting, right? So that we can get some organization to this field and collect data, man. That's the big one, collecting the data. Everybody's got their beliefs and their theories, but we don't have any data to back it up, right? So we may find out there's other correlations out there that we never thought of.
Yeah, and something that I just thought about was that I actually only know one person, and I know a lot of people in this field, a lot of credited people, but I only know one person that has actually published white papers, and that's Ryan Yakovin.
Yeah.
He's the only one that I know that can say that they publish some white papers, and not that there aren't others. I'm sure that there are, but the thing is, the vast majority of people are not taking that kind of approach to all this research. And I think like that's the kind of approach that we need to take in order to be taken seriously by the scientific community, or just,
That's right.
I mean, we have to show some level of professionalism and organization and coordination, and the same way that MUFON does. MUFON is a very credible organization,
Yes.
even though it's still in the realm of UFOs for a long time. Who, if anybody has a UFO sighting, who do they think of to call? Like, oh, MUFON.
Right.
MUFON is such an accredited organization, and so I love this.
Yeah, and yeah, that's where I want to get us in the ghost hunting field. So again, please go to that link, fill out the form. If it's fake data, that's fine. I'm just using this to try to check my generative AI and make sure it's doing good. Just let me know in the form somewhere that it's fake data. None of
We
this
encourage real data.
I do encourage real data, but
Yes,
nobody has probably taken notes, right, on their latest investigation, so they might not have any. So, but I just need something to run through my Gen AI. Hey, Denise.
Hey, man, it's only Thursday, man. Tomorrow is Friday, and I know there are a bunch of people that are going out and going ghost hunting tomorrow night and Saturday night, right?
Right.
Plenty of y'all out there have a ghost hunt this weekend. Here's your opportunity. While you're ghost hunting, go to Project there you go, just like that.
Boom. That would be fantastic. So
easy. You can remember it too, guys. It's right there. It's tomorrow or 2 days from
now. Right. So yeah, I don't want to talk all about Project Eris. What's your take on the devices in the field right now, the technology? Why hasn't it progressed, do you think? I mean, we've got so many REM pods out there. It's flooded. The market's saturated, right?
Oh my gosh. I think one of the biggest hindrances is creativity. And like people that I think that, would be really helpful is if we had more people that were tinkering around and trying to, think outside the box and just try different things. Like at one point, when you started building the Epic and the Piccolo, I mean, at one point you were tinkering around and trying to figure out, how can I do this? How can I go at this with a different approach? And so, but that we need more people doing that, because that's what's going to drive innovation. That's what's going to open doorways that we may never have even thought of. And I think that that's the problem. Is I think that most of our community is so bound by these ideas of what the paranormal consists of, or like what we should be, looking for or measuring during these investigations. But like, I don't think,
hey, Travis.
You said what?
Oh, Travis just said hello to both of us. Travis was asking.
Oh, Travis, man. But I think that first of all, we definitely need more people to even just go down that route in general. But that's the thing, is like so many people are not, and even data, even devices that, like, I just see so many people think and look at like some of the equipment that we see out there as a cash grab. And I think that that's kind of tainting what you and I do, and kind of taking away from what you and I do, because people will see some of the equipment that we put out, not understanding that there is a different technology inside of it than what you would find in all these other devices. But people don't seem to want to be as educated on the devices, which I think it just hinders a lot, I think.
Yeah, so that's kind of, as a builder, and as a builder that has devised something that is very new and unique, the Epic Box.
Yep.
A lot of pushback I get from people is they don't understand it. And that's fine, right? I'm not going to give out my intellectual property on it, but at the same time, you don't need to understand how a transmission works to get you from home to work, right? You just need to know how to drive the car. You need to know how to use my device. But there seems to be this wall of, If it's not an EMF meter and it's not some REM pod clone, I'm afraid of it because I don't know how it works, right? So that's where I think credibility comes in for the builders. And also the field needs to be more accepting.
Yeah, and that's why I think like the boundaries, like the limitations on the way that the paranormal community thinks and what they're looking for, what they think. I still argue and trying to figure out like who decided that spirits need EMF or that we can detect. Like who decided this? I mean, just because we measure these anomalies, I mean that's fine, but there's a lot of reason anomalies may occur that are naturally explained. How do we know that that's specifically what we're looking for? You know, there's a lot of things that I question about the motive necessarily, but for me, I like to at least explain to people what the device is like how it's. Like for instance, like I created that little proximity detector, the candle that I have.
Yeah.
It's just transistor based. But I like the transistor because it's real simple. It's easy. It's very sensitive to the environment, and it will actually, as you know, like they grow in sensitivity the longer they sit. And it's shoot, I forgot where I was going with that. But like, if I were to look at, most people will look at it and see like, oh, it's just a glowing light. But I want people to be educated and understand like it's actually looking for a change in capacitive resistance.
Right.
And people may not understand exactly like what that means at the time. But when you talk about how does a REM pod work, most people seem to
they don't know.
Like generally, like it seems like people know what a REM pod does because they know that if you get close to it, it starts to light up. But do people actually understand like the like what it's actually doing, right?
Right. Yeah, they just see it used on TV. They understand how it works in that sense, right? They've seen it. So I think that trust in it comes from seeing it, I mean, quite frankly, on TV.
Right. But I do think that right. But I do think it is important though that the customer I try to at least educate people on what it's doing. I don't want to give away, obviously, like you said, the intellectual, like how I'm doing it, necessarily the technology behind it, the circuitry, whatever. Like that's something I'm not going to give up. But like, there's a lot of things that can measure capacitive resistance. I'm just doing it in my own way, just like you're doing. Like the Piccolo is an EMF music box, and you're detecting EMF in a different way than a simple K2 meter, right?
Right.
So I think that, I think it's important to like at least explain what the device is detecting, how it's detecting it, kind of thing, but not necessarily the technology that's being used. I mean, that's
I completely agree. It's just I have seen that kind of wall or fence that gets built up and like, oh, I don't understand how. But again, it's like, do you understand how the obelisk works?
Exactly.
The creator will tell you he doesn't even know how it works, which I don't understand. But so I don't know how he gets away with that, but he does.
I can say that some I will say though that like with JW and the direct link, like we don't really understand how it works either. Like we don't understand we understand how it's coded, how it's like operating, but like how it's able to have the level of relevancy and communication. I mean, you've even experienced it too. Like he doesn't understand what makes this so much different than another randomized scanning circuit, so like these are just, that's like a different way of like not understanding. I don't know if Bill Chappell truly is like, I don't know, because I don't see the obelisk as all that like, you know what I mean, like reliable or relevant. I feel like it's a lot of nothing.
Right. Yeah. And
as far as like
the device we've seen on TV, we've seen it over and over again on TV, so it gets accepted because it has that social value.
100%.
And nobody questions how it works. They just,
And that's a big hurdle for guys like us to get over.
right.
It really is.
Yeah. I fight with that on the Epic box all the time. And I find it's more with other builders that want to know exactly how it works, and they'll come to me and they're like, "I'd buy it, but I don't know exactly how it works. Can you tell me?" And I'll buy it. And I'm like, I look them up and I'm like, "Oh, you're a builder. Of course you do."
Right.
But most users, they're okay with it. They've seen it work. They've seen others use it. A lot of them have compared it with like a Flux 2, and it's been more accurate and more responsive than a Flux 2. So the adoption rate is still, for a new device that's unique, not a REM pod or EMF meter or a PIR sensor. The adoption rate isn't as high as say, if I were to come up with a PIR sensor thing, whenever I played music, I would probably sell the shit out of those.
Oh yeah,
over the Epic box.
I know, but I mean, I think because like I mean, I know that you've even with the Epic, it is you said that it was looking for a number of different things like into an algorithm, right?
Yeah.
Which I mean, they don't necessarily need to know what that algorithm is. Nobody needs to know what that algorithm is except you,
right?
But like, if they know what did you? I think a long time ago you told me it was like EMF, RF2, right? Like you were actually looking at radio frequencies as well as one other thing too. And but that's what I thought was so unique and innovative about it, is because it's actually taking elements from all three, like it kind of like the triple axis motion or EMF detector, right? But not in sense of like physical axis, but like, three different data points that are being fed into this in order for it to create a yes or no response, which I think is very unique.
Yeah. And it's not a linear way of doing it. It's not simply it detected EMF, light the light. It detected static, light the light, right?
Right.
The algorithm is it's more or less looking at certain patterns, and when that pattern is reached, then it says yes. If that pattern is reached a different way, it says no. So
that's crazy. That's awesome.
It's in that knowing what that pattern is.
And that's like and getting to that pattern is not an easy task. I'm sure that took you years to come up with the one that you were happy with.
Right.
And so
like that's a lot of data.
Yeah. And so like that's what separates, and for people that are watching, everybody needs to understand, like that's what separates a lot of like the smaller builders from these other Walmart stores, is that like there sometimes is years of development that goes into these products, a lot of money that we just throw down the toilet. God, Rob, how many thousands of dollars over the years have you just
I am so in the red with Ghost Gear.
Oh my God.
I don't think I'll ever break even. When I get out of this, you'll know I broke even. I'll never. I know people are like, well, you sell the Epic box for $240. Like, I'm never going to break even.
Yeah, but people don't understand, like, not because it's not just, I mean, how many parts do you end up just like buying, tinkering with, throwing away because trying to get the design right?
Circuit
I mean,
board.
you could spend this. Oh my God, the circuitry is the most, like the coding, the circuitry, all of it can take so much time.
Yeah.
And so much money that by the time it gets to the $250, you could be $10,000, $20,000 into this. Like, 250 is a fair price, I think.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm in the 6 digits for the Epic box.
But I think that I think that the technology shows, and I wish that people really like were able to like see why it's different than, like, why is it different than the Flux? You know,
Right.
like that would be a big thing that I think people really should understand. You know,
And, right. So the flux is just motion sensor pointed left, a motion sensor pointed right. Right. So
yep.
that's all it is. Um,
Is it a PIR or is it IR, or what kind of sensor is it using? You know,
let's find out. I'm going to Google it.
I never actually like looked into that.
Oops, I can't spell.
Yeah, I know that the flux is using, it's a dual sided, like it's using two different circuits on it.
Right.
So like, you know, that I definitely I I love the Epic. I bring it with me everywhere, man. Because it's like it's so easy. It's so easy, just turn it on and just knowing the that it's not just looking at one thing or whatever, you know, like it's not just an EMF detector or a static detector or whatever, right? Like that just makes
Right.
it so much more, like I feel better using it. I feel like I don't know. That is one thing that I always look at is when I'm using something, like how credible do I think that the device is, and like how you know, if I were to present the results of using this device as any kind of evidence, would it look stupid? Or would
Right.
it look, you know, if I can like explain what the device is looking for and that this should not be happening kind of thing, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's true. I would have stuck to my day job if I would have
Yeah,
known
100%.
it would be money sink.
But I think that like what you're doing is important though. Like I think it's necessary, and somebody needs to do it. And like I mean, nobody's been doing it, and I can appreciate the initiative that you take, especially not just with like Project Eris, but like you know, just the hard work that goes into a lot of these devices that we look into or that we use. You know, I mean, because especially because you and I both know how many builders do you see come and go.
Oh,
Like, I mean,
yeah.
I've seen so many great builders too, great minds just kind of back out of the field just because of like you know the drama and all the negative kind of feedback they get. But guys, we should be encouraging these people. We should be
Right.
encouraging these people to push further, like you know, explore things that you know, I mean, if you guys have ideas, like reach out to these people, say, hey, you know, something to think about. You know, if there's funding that you guys have to fund these projects for these builders, like I do a lot of custom work. So I do get some custom projects that I've never even tried before. And those are my favorite projects because, like, I get to learn something and anytime we get money from these products, it goes right back into development and, you know, further, you know, the next thing. Right. And so Project Eris I mean, that's a big undertaking, man.
Yeah.
And so,
That's going to
I
be
mean,
a
yeah. And so, like, you know, I think, like, if people just really understood, like, who do they support the most? Right. Have you ever, like, looked at that? Who do people support the most in the community?
That's a good question. I've never looked into that. Like who? Zach Bagans, I guess he's number one.
I
As
don't
far
think
as
that
TV
the
shows go.
community. I don't know
Yeah,
if the
I know
community
what you're saying. I'm just
supports.
being a little facetious.
You're
Uh,
right.
yeah, I don't know.
Like I've noticed that a lot of you know people will always say that they support builders, that they support you know the advancement of technology. A lot of people support the work that you are doing, the work that I'm doing, right? Um, but but I also see, you know, people like, and no disrespect to, you know, Dakota and all these people like, but for like Project Fear, you know, I know Dakota and Chelsea and, you know, they're good people, but, like how did Project Fear raise $300,000 to produce a season? But we
Yeah,
have people over here like really getting into debt, trying to develop technology that all of you people use, that we all use in all of our stuff. And like, you see, you know what I mean? I
Right.
kind of feel like it's backwards a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's funny. I had somebody, what do you call them? A influencer, tell me it's funny when they got started, they couldn't get shit. But now that they're very well known and quite frankly very wealthy, they get everything free.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, that's kind of flip side on the builders too, right? You know, the
Mm-hmm.
famous people get everything. They don't, even though they don't need it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But struggling builders and what have you, you know, we could use that, and that money would go a long way.
I
But
would argue that these people that that don't need it, they also don't necessarily deserve it. A lot of times, I
oh,
don't know what necessarily does. There are certain people on TV that I'm not going to say any names, but I don't understand what they're on TV for. Like I know that they're in part of, they're part of a show that's really big, but then you like look at that show like why like you look at that person, like what do they actually contribute that like 150,000 other people in the paranormal community could contribute in a much better way.
right,
You know what I mean? And so like that's where the flaws are. It's like the attention is going to people. I think a lot of it is just like, people that make a lot of friends or the right friends. And I think that that's obviously an important piece of getting on the shows and being successful really in any kind of industry. If you are trying to sell something, whether that's yourself or a device or, whatever. But some of these people, man, it's like there's so many more qualified individuals that deserve that spotlight, that deserve that attention, and that could bring like how many I should just stop, man. People are
I
gonna start getting angry at me.
no, you see my drum set back there. So I've always joked around that there are more Steve Vais out there playing in the garage than people realize. You know what I mean? They'll never be
Mhm.
found, they'll never be heard, but they're every bit as good, right?
If
Maybe
not
even
better.
better, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I see where you're going with. I mean, it's more of who you know than what you know, kind of
Mhm.
mentality in the paranormal. And it seems like once you do get into that in crowd, the momentum builds. You know, it's like a snowball.
Mhm.
You just start getting all this crap free to the point where some of the shows, not all of them, but some of the shows are pay to play. You know, if you want to have
Yeah.
your device on that show, you better cough up some money. And I won't say the show's name, but they wanted $10,000 an episode with no guarantee that the device would make the final edit.
Hell no.
Yeah,
No, they can go kick
yeah,
rocks.
yeah. And I was like,
Go find some other sucker.
I'll have to pass on that one.
Yeah, man, but like that's why, even I've gotten into a position where like I have the ability to put these devices out in some kind of man, and it obviously has been very frustrating that we haven't been able to release season 4 yet of Deathwalker. I know that there's deals in place for US release. It's just a matter of like when are they going to actually like put it on the platforms and stuff. So but like I take advantage of that position, and I know that you were saying like I design all of the experiments and equipment and everything for the show, but that's not necessarily true because in reality, at least half of the devices that I give to Nick on the show are made by other people. And I do that on purpose because like I feel like it's very important for everybody, especially all the builders that I believe are actually, bringing some kind of level of innovation to this field, and they're doing good work for the right reasons, especially.
Right.
I want those people to have their device on there too and have, Nick use it on the show and hopefully even have it give some evidence or something, and even if it doesn't work one episode, like especially with your devices too, I can I can just set them up on location, whether or
Right.
not they go off. But if they do go off, then Nick will be able to run to that location or whatever, like especially with the piccolo
Yeah.
and the Phantoon, so like that kind of stuff I think is great. And I really feel like I'm trying to do the best that I can with it. And obviously, when we start filming season 5 pretty soon, which hopefully, yeah, we got to get season 4 out there first. But as soon as that comes out, we're going to start filming season 5. And so, yeah, I mean, I really want to take advantage of that opportunity so that I can give everybody, all my friends, all of the people, not just my friends, but like people that are truly like creating something innovative. And I think that needs to be exposed, needs to be put out there for people to see, because even if our ideas as they are right now, like even if they are not like to their final destination per se, like
Right.
as the ideas are, but hopefully our ideas will inspire 2-3 generations from now, where
Yeah.
somebody's gonna be like, dang, that guy had a good idea, but now I can do it in this way because
Right.
technology is further along.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's technology is moving exponentially.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of technology moving along, what are your thoughts in the quantum realm? So a lot of that is now hitting the news for paranormal, you know, investigators to theorize, and so I'm curious what your take on that is.
um I think the answers will definitely be found either directly or indirectly through the quantum perspective, if that makes sense. Like I
Right.
think like because obviously when we're looking at when we're studying the quantum level, a lot of these quantum, especially for like public consumption, I mean, I wouldn't even say like those single photon event cameras. And while they're very helpful because even those single event cameras are helpful in the sense, dude, quantum is so crazy. Like quantum is so wild, and I just love the
It completely defies physics as we know it. The quantum realm does.
yeah, I mean, because classical physics can explain just like the general universe, like the way that we can perceive the universe. But when you get into the quantum realm, like all that goes away. And the idea of, I mean, quantum, I think, is 100% where we're going to find some solutions.
Yeah,
100%.
no, I agree. I agree completely. Especially, I mean, you're talking. Well, I mean, there's so many different. I mean, the only thing we're really missing in the quantum realm, folks, is the gravity uh, photon. And once we get that, then I think we'll be able to have hovering crafts and what have you. But we have discovered most all other photons in the quantum realm, or at least have mathematics to prove that they exist, but we don't have it for the gravity.
Or the antiphoton.
Oh, well, yeah,
Now that's the ever elusive one, and I think that that's what constitutes like dark matter.
that plays into the dark matter, and basically how that works is when they collide, they offset each other, right? But we don't know. If I'm not mistaken, we don't know what will happen. It's theorized either it's the end of the universe or nothing happens, right? So
Oh,
it's
that's what we
kind of
got.
like, well,
That's what we got CERN for, right? But that's part of the concern is that CERN is causing multiple timelines, and that's what the Mandela effect is a result of. But some of the things that I really like when it comes to the quantum, like quantum theory, especially with regards to the paranormal, is the idea of superposition with electrons. Now,
okay,
now for those that don't know, superposition is basically what a particle is the position that a particle is in before it's observed, which means that it can be in either state. It can be in two different states at once. A good example of this would be Schrodinger's cat, right? Like
Right.
it's inside of the box. It's both with the uranium. That's the cat is both alive and dead at the same time until you observe it and see.
And that was
And
done through the proved through the double slit experiment.
yeah, the double slit experiment basically just it did show that particles act as both a wave and a particle depending on whether or not they're being observed. It's a particle when it's observed. It's a wave when it's not. And the big mystery is how the hell does it know? That's
Right.
one part of it. But also, they noticed the only time, because it's only a particle when you're measuring it. And so, what does that mean? Like, how do you know? Like, how does that know?
How does it know? Right.
But the crazy thing about superposition is that it means that both the past, present, and future are all happening simultaneously in theory.
Right.
Now, what that could mean is that all the electrons that currently exist, everything that makes up like a lot of the events that we see, especially when we talk about haunted locations and this impactful energy from a murder or whatever, right? Like those electrons are imprinted. And so is it possible that people that are, see manifestations or whatever, like full body apparitions, different things like that, they're actually catching a slippage of those electrons in the superposition on the other end? Because, based on Einstein's theory of special relativity, right? No, special relativity involves high instances of gravity, but and quantum, no, because that's not going to work.
Are you leaning more towards the entanglement part of it?
No. Basically, because superposition basically means that it can be in the past, the future, the present, and so I wonder if, when these events happen, they're imprinted on the particles, and so like people that have psychic abilities or people that see these apparitions are just catching that slippage of the imprinted electrons from the past, kind of just almost if they're like simultaneous 3 different bubbles, right? They just kind of like intersect with each other just for a second, and certain people or at certain points in time are able to just witness those because if an electron is in one state, it's in theory, based on Einstein's theories, it is in another state as well. So it could be in like 6 different positions at once.
Yep.
So
until it's observed.
So if we measure it in one position, then it's also still in these other positions in what we would consider to be alternate realities, essentially.
Right.
But the fact that it's in these things, I think that there's some kind of crossover between the past, present, and future all happening simultaneously. Like a lot of this is backed by string theory and everything, but I do believe that that's a lot of what we're experiencing is more or less, it could be even our past selves, our future selves.
Well, it gets even crazier when you bring in entanglement, right? So that's the state of when a particle influences the state of another particle. But the thing is, no matter the distance, so you could have a particle on Earth and another particle on Mars, and they can influence each other.
Yeah. The crazy thing about that, they actually proved it. They literally just proved it. Yeah. I want to say they were able to prove it 2023, but they released the report last year. They did it not only with the fiber optic cables. The fiber optic cables allowed them to do it like for over 1,200 miles or something, 1,200 kilometers or something, I remember. But they were actually able to do it over like 60 kilometers without the fiber optic cables. And so they actually were able to prove the quantum entanglement exists. And now
I remember reading something that China had done something similar. I think they teleported a particle into this into space and then back.
Yes, but what they did though is essentially time travel, because what they did was basically take that particle, and it's probably where the superposition part comes in. Is that this plays into? Did you read my post the other day about the one electron theory?
Oh, right. Yep.
Yeah. So
I had to do some research on that one. I didn't know much about that one, but
it's kind of crazy, isn't it? So like when you think about that being the one, like that kind of plays into that. Is like
right.
then you know that particles are able to teleport, and if they were able to like induce that or like artificially do it or manufacture, I don't know what you would say, but like if they were able to do that artificially, like that's big.
Yeah. Because
Like
because if we can do it, then that clearly it's happening naturally.
and so playing into the paranormal equation now, because obviously when we're talking about quantum, we're talking about individual particles and everything, right? But
right.
when you what can happen to one particle can happen to millions at once at any given moment because of superposition. Granted, it takes the way that we observe the universe in theory is because of superposition. Basically, like the outside world, like if you're not viewing it, then it's just nothing. Like it only generates a view or a visual or whatever when we view it, when we observe it.
The light.
And so
Yeah.
Now, and especially when we're talking about the dark matter and all of that, the thing I love about the idea of dark matter is that all it is just a generalized term used to give to matter, to what does not interact with our electromagnetic spectrum. So
right. So
we're limited. We're bounded by the electromagnetic spectrum perceptually. Yeah. So I mean, like I think that there is matter. We're able to detect it indirectly. Like we're able to see dark matter indirectly, but
do you think dark matter then comes in when we talk about the veil being lifted and what
100%.
We can see into that, but it doesn't interact with our spectrum?
100%. I think dark matter, literally, it fills the space in all of us. It is literally all around us all the time. And they we don't see it. Obviously, we can't interact with it. But one thing that we do know is that it is affected by high levels of gravity. And that's how we know that it's there, is because you get that ripple effect and you get light bending in space in a supposed vacuum. And so, like, if the vacuum of space is being distorted, there's got to be a medium there for that light to be bending. If there's no medium, light won't bend. And so that's something is there, but apparently we can only like see it with high levels of gravity, and that's the only way.
So that goes back into
your. I got you thinking about another device.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it. But that goes back into like what you were saying earlier about the gravity particle.
Yeah.
Like I think if we're able to detect the gravity particle, then that may lead us into the discovery of like what dark matter may be.
Right.
And I think that dark matter is where the paranormal, like, honestly, I would not be surprised if like everything that we're communicating with, everything that we're trying to look into is within the dark matter. Like, just because it's all around us all the time, it can affect our universe and we can detect it, but we can't
interact.
We can't detect it exactly, but it's an indirect observation. I feel like, you know what I mean? Like we can observe how it affects our universe, but we can't detect it directly.
And it plays into what we hear a lot of reports are, right? People say the shadow was blacker than black, right? So if it's bending light, then that's a true black, right? So it would be darker than any hallway. It would be darker than anything that we've ever witnessed, because even at night, it's still not 100% pitch black, right? There's still some light. So if this thing is true darkness because it's bending the light, then it would look blacker than black to the human eye.
Oh, it's not even bending. It's a completely absorbing that light. Like, because I mean, if something is, because yeah, like you're right. Like even when you're laying in your room at night with no lights on or anything, you can still see because your eyes adapt to the very, very low frequencies of the light that are still there. And a lot of that is within obviously like the IR and UV spectrum and beyond. Like it's very, very low. It's not quite,
Right.
right. It's right on the borderlines, right? But when something that you see, like you said, a shadow, it completely eliminates all of that. Even like that's where I think, like where the anti-photon comes into play.
Right. Yeah.
And that is something that the math and everything says that it should be there. It does exist. How do we detect it?
Yeah. So yeah, that's the big. So I've been working with Alan Corneliuson, and one of his projects is to try, like we were mentioning before the show, try to classify an apparition. But the problem is, right? How do you do it? How dark was the apparition, or how light was the apparition, and why are some dark and some light, right? So yeah, that would play into the antimatter and what, I don't know. There's so many questions rattling around in my head. What intelligence is there to form that shape of the antimatter, right? Is it our perception of another being and we just perceive it as antimatter, or it comes to us through some universal filter and it only shows up as antimatter? Maybe on the other side, it is a physical being, right? That has, solid to it, but to us, it looks ethereal.
So because we can't see it or interact with it directly. Right. We can only observe its indirect effects, which could be, which is really like what I have really theorized for a long time, is like we can measure the indirect effects that it may have, and so that's why looking at like I think that there may be something to do with, and I was talking to JW about this the other day, about the way that ions form in the air, in the atmosphere, right? So like ions have a charge, positive or negative.
Right.
And everything like in the air, like there's ions all around us all the time. Now, has there ever been a thought about detecting any kind of change? Like now it would be interesting to be able to develop a camera that could detect the charges of ions in the atmosphere and be able to detect if there was like a giant group of a changed charge and ion all of a sudden. Like if positive, there was like a huge area of all positive, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the all positive, you just get a group of negative just appear, like in the shape of a mass or something. Like I wonder if anybody like has looked into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got my wheels turning. I'm thinking how, like,
and maybe not even necessarily that specific thing, but there's like a number of things within quantum physics that I feel like we could be looking into, and that's just one.
Yeah,
I mean, the amount of possibilities with this.
Yeah, a lot of it is just the rate of change too. A lot of our devices right now look at after it's changed, and it lights up a red light and beeps.
The indirect effects, possibly.
What we may be interested in is that rate of change. How fast did it change? We don't care that it now is settled and it reads 20 milligauss or whatever, but that rate of change, is that a normal rate of change or an abnormal rate of change, and why is that? And then that goes back to looking at patterns again, right? So yeah, that's I'm going to be up late tonight thinking about new crap that I never thought of in different ways, right? So
Man, I tend to have that effect on some people, I guess. Just like, oh man, I get your wheels turned. Now you got a new idea. I love it, man. I love it because we need this innovation and and anybody else. Like if you hear some of the things that I say on any video, on anything or like I want you guys to take the idea, like, and I would love to hear about it. I want to hear, what the results are because obviously, Rob and I as builders, we have the things that we do. We can't jump into every idea that we may have.
Oh God, yeah, I've got hundreds of ideas floating around.
Oh my goodness. Oh
You
my
know,
goodness.
it's funny you were talking about the gravity, and it made me think of Jim Segala's data logger, the MUPOS data logger that he gives to. Well, he doesn't give, but he selects the people, and then they pay for it, and it's a data logger that goes in their house. And one of the things it logs is gravity, and he's able to when they contact him and say, "Last night was really weird. If I were abducted by aliens, last night would have been one of the nights." And he'll go back and look at the data logger, the data that he has from their house. And gravity is one thing that will change on those nights that they report weird crap happening.
I'm curious how they measure that.
You can measure that through an accelerometer. When the accelerometer changes, then the gravity changes. It's because of the gravity change.
Oh, I thought an accelerometer was
like a
for
3-axis accelerometer.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I guess you could do that.
Yeah,
because like I always thought an accelerometer was like it's like wind speed or something, or it was not wind speed.
No, it detects change in it's the forces that are applied to it, and one of those forces is gravity. So depending on what axis it's on, so you got to know what axis is the down axis, and then you look at that.
Yeah.
Let's say the Z axis, right? So you look at that, and you set a normal for what the gravity is. We know what that is at sea level. We know what gravity is, right? Or that's barometric pressure, sorry. But we know what the gravity is, and when it changes, when that accelerometer changes, then the gravity has lightened or gotten heavier. And he is able to correlate people's reports of weird shit happening to gravity changes.
Well, now
that's on the alien side, right? So now, well, with what you're saying now, it's like, well, could that also be? What if that's just a result of some kind of ethereal, spectral veil opening, closing? I don't know how the aliens get in your house. They get beamed in. Maybe when they get beamed in, the gravity changes for a second. Same thing with a ghost. When a ghost suddenly appears, the gravity changes a little bit. So that's
I wonder if aliens are able to because we're able to now teleport particles. We have found a way to teleport a single particle at least.
Right.
I wonder if they're advanced enough to where they're able to break down their bodies molecularly and teleport them and regenerate themselves somewhere else.
Hell yeah, Star Trek all the way, man.
You know what I mean? Like that's literally what if China's able to teleport one particle, just shit, give us 100 years, right? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's gotta be possible at some point.
If we're able to do one particle, then the physics, we just got to work it out. Like you said, in 100 years, we'll probably have it.
Oh yeah, 100%. But I see now my wheels are turning now. I like that. I never thought about that. It's such a simple idea. It's like it's turning an accelerometer on the side.
Yep. And then, you just measure, because one of the things when you program the microcontroller to read the accelerometer, which is usually an I2C connection, you have to give it the standard, the
base measurement or what do they call that? The baseline.
Right. So any deviation from that is a change in gravity.
That's wild, dude. That's such a when you think about that, that's like, why didn't I think of that? At the same time, it's like, damn, that's smart. That's really smart.
I learned that when working
I
on
like
the
that.
Orbis. I've got a 3-axis accelerometer for the vibration detection. And
Yeah.
I kept having problems with the Z-axis, which is the down axis, up and down. Um, it kept messing up. And so what it turned out to be was I was not correcting for gravitational pull. So once I put that into the code and I corrected it for the gravitational pull, everything was fine. It read like the other two axes did, the X and the Y. But the Z is the only one I had to. Now, if you take the Orbis and you rotate it, that all gets screwed up. So now I got to put in some code for that, right? So it's going to have to read the position from the accelerometer to find out what position it's in, and then make the corrections for gravity based off of that. So if I assume if I set that down and it's steady state and then it changes, that's got to be a change in gravity.
If any of you ever wonder the complexity of the research and development that goes into these devices, if you just heard what Rob just said, I mean, that's like a level of complexity that most builders don't look at. Like, that's something that, like, I think I'm a little bit above a lot of these builders, but shit, I wouldn't have never thought of that. And that's such a, like, but like, damn. But like, you guys can see, for all you watching, you guys can see like how much like thought and like experimentation and trial and error and like how long did it take you to like realize that?
Oh, that took about a week and a half, because I was doing everything I thought was right for the accelerometer, but only the Z-axis. And then I realized, well, the way that was positioned, the Z-axis is affected by gravity, where the other two aren't as much as the Z-axis is. So I did some research into that and found this guy that is like a uber pro at accelerometers, and he's like, yeah, you got to account for the gravitational pull.
That's so wild, dude. This is why I love, like, this is some of the stuff that like shows the level of innovation that you bring is like, who the hell else would have like tried to do something and then had to consider gravity in their devices. Like, I don't know anybody that has ever like actually encountered a problem with their devices where they've had to consider the effects of gravity.
And they also need to consider the effects of temperature, because temperature affects circuitry. And so I've been working with Mark on his dead bell. I'm not banging on the dead bell or anything, but he noticed, and he emailed me, he noticed that when he comes in from the garage, the dead bell goes off. Or whenever he opens an exterior door, the dead bell goes off. And he wanted to know if that was temperature. So I was like, I don't know if it senses temperature or not. So I went and looked, and apparently it does not sense temperature. But I do think, since it is basically a REM pod clone inside there, the cheap 555 timer. So the way that a REM pod works, or a REM pod clone, or the Junior Thurman, the 555 timer is pulsing.
Yep.
And the pulses are being read by the PIC microcontroller, which why they use PIC, it was in the 1970s, whatever, PIC microcontroller. If that 555 timer changes temperature, it's going to change its pulse. That PIC picks up on that change and flags the alarm and said, oh, something happened, right? So that's what I think is going on with Mark's dead bell, and probably a lot of other REM pod clones, or even the original REM pod as well, is temperature. So if you don't have a temperature sensing or a temperature compensating 555 timer, you're going to get those variations.
And I never thought about that either. And now that makes me wonder, like, of all the times REM pods have been used, and, you think like there is no way ever. I know that, well, the current REM pod does have like a temperature change detection on it.
Yeah, but it doesn't have a temperature compensating not
Right.
timer.
Right. And so like that makes me wonder like how many false readings are people getting
Think about this. The guy,
because of the environment that it's in.
the guy that made the Junior Thurman, which the REM pod is based off of, he made it for kids, and he made it to be a soldering exercise.
Yep.
Okay. He was not looking for laboratory level results.
Right.
So it uses cheap everything.
Mhm.
And that's the core of just about every REM pod like device, and the original REM pod by Gary Galka is that cheap design.
I would rather get a real theremin, man.
I know, right? Well, that's what the Orbis is going to be. The Orbis is based off of an actual theremin design, so it's going to be pretty awesome. No antenna.
Cool.
The Orbis will not have an antenna. Yeah. So that's how powerful. Yeah, that's how powerful the original theremin design is. If you and then you take it up to modern, integrated circuit. Then
you can probably supercharge that thing.
Yeah, turning it down is actually what we have to do.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, we are over by about 7 minutes. So I do appreciate the talk. It has been awesome. And time just flew by. I need to have more guests on it. It beats me just mumbling and fumbling through all this.
Well, you got to make sure that you have guests that can have some of these conversations with you for sure, too, right?
That is true, yes. No dead air,
right?
Well, all right, Austin, I appreciate your time and your awesomeness. And everyone else, I appreciate you tuning in. And for those that are going to watch this later, I thank you as well. So
I appreciate you having me on, man. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, anytime. But for now, good night, everyone. I got to hit the right. Yeah, it does.